Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Mike McCarthy is going to talk to Pittsburgh media later today. On this show, I want to talk about how is he going to build out his coaching staff. We talk about that with Alan Saunders here on today's episode, as well as do the Steelers just need to have that bad year everyone says they need so they can build the roster out. And the Senior Bowl practices start today. We'll get your preview at that, look at that as well. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And a reminder, the Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. As before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He's back from SteelersNow.com. He and I are both in Mobile, different locations, but we will soon be in the same location. But we've made it. Alan went and covered the Shrine Bowl all last week, and he's made his way to here to Alabama. We're it's not actually that much warmer. It's actually, I mean, it's warmer than Pittsburgh. It's like 30, but it's 31 degrees tonight. It's a little chilly because Alabama doesn't know how to handle that. But Alan, you're a madman because you're also going back to Pittsburgh for this Mike McCarthy press conference and then coming back in the same day down to Alabama so you can get back to the Senior Bowl. I don't understand why you're this crazy.
I probably would have cried a psychology degree, which I don't have.
I don't know either. Let's talk, but we'll get to what Mike McCarthy says later today for tomorrow's episode. But I wanted to talk to you, Alan, about this coaching search is now complete for the head coach, but the coaching search for the rest of the roster is now on. And there's a lot of conversations about who could or should fill in the rest of this roster. This is the question that we have been posing for a bit because, it's not, our Rooney basically put it out that like, hey, coaches, all the assistant coaches who've been here, you're free to look for other jobs. You're only going to be here if the new head coach wants you around. So there's a chance that they could be cleaning house. We've talked about that on the show. Is there any coach on the Steelers coaching staff that you expect to stick around, Alan, or is this going to be a cleaning of house? We know Denzel Martin, the Steelers outside linebackers coach, completed an interview with the Cowboys yesterday.
I mean, Scott McCurley, I would think, was on McCarthy's staff in Dallas, was only in Pittsburgh 1 year, so I imagine he's still under contract. That would seem to make a lot of sense. And then, I think Carl Dunbar and Gerald Alexander have done good jobs, and they would probably be welcome back, depending on the specific, do they want to work for the new guy, whatever, that kind of thing. But
right.
I would think the offensive staff is going to get completely overhauled, with maybe the one exception being Eddie Faulkner, just because of the success they've had at the running back position. But, I mean, it wouldn't totally surprise me if they go clean house on offense.
That's what I see too, especially with that's Mike McCarthy's specialty. That's what he's known for developing. He's had 4 times he had an offense that had the most points scored in the NFL. At least 9 other times, maybe 10. He's been a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL. I can totally see the turnover happening, and agreed on Eddie Faulkner being the top guy that maybe sticks around for what he's done with the running back position. But again, I think this is going to be interesting to see how he fills it out because, on offense, I can see him doing that. But maybe there's a bit of trust there on the defense because, the Steelers have good defensive assistants between, Carl Dunbar on the D-line, like you brought up, Jed Alexander in the year that he had with the secondary and the development he got out of Joey Porter Jr., Denzel Martin and the edge rushers, Scott McCurley in the linebacker. Like, this is not the coaching staff there was not seen as the weakness of the Steelers team on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball, there were some strengths, But I agree with you, like, especially with Arthur Smith moving out, there's going to be a lot of changes on that side of the ball. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who Mike McCarthy wants to target to be his OC.
Yeah, I mean, and will the OC be calling the plays, or will it be Mike himself? That's still up in the air as well. And I think that, changes, who the candidates are. There are certain guys who aren't going to be interested in that job unless they're calling the plays.
Right.
Had Joe Hoyt from the Dallas on my podcast yesterday. He was talking about how there was some friction between McCarthy and Schottenheimer in Dallas, and he eventually he kind of took the play calls away from Kellen Moore, and then at the end he kind of gave them back to Schottenheimer, and it was like a back and forth thing that didn't go very well. And so we'll see. Scott Tolvien, who was on his staff in Dallas, is the quarterbacks coach of the New Orleans Saints. I think he did a really nice job with Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck this year. If you're looking for someone who isn't going to be the play caller necessarily, you just want to give that offensive coordinator title, I think that's a really good option. Who just falls directly from the McCarthy tree. Obviously, you can go outside that, and that's not a problem. But I think I think really the big question: how involved is Mike going to be in the offense, and then you can kind of figure out the rest.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how Mike Tomlin was a CEO head coach. He would step in where he thought it was necessary for the defense, and he would, say what he wanted in certain situations. But he was not the ultimate play caller of the defense. That was Terrell Austin. I imagine Mike McCarthy, maybe he tries to delegate that role at the start, but we've seen him pull those back and say, I'm going to be calling the plays before. I think that's going to be a very interesting dynamic of this, and however they go about assembling the quarterback room is who calls the plays, who establishes that pace of, what's being called when, and developing that relationship with whatever quarterback the Steelers inherit next year.
I mean, I think it's really hard to start talking about like things like, what players are fit. I mean, we're here at the Senior Bowl. Like, what players are going to be fits for the Steelers? I don't know what scheme they're running. We got to have some coordinators in place. And I think that's there's a lot of different directions they can go, and I'm really interested to see what they do, because I mean, I think it's sort of time's of the essence here.
Yeah, because the Steelers have made this big decision. They have several other big decisions to make. They got to pick their coordinators. They got to pick their position coaches, and they're being picked off every single day. The pool to dwindle from to take from is dwindling, and I think the Steelers, if they want to keep up with things, if they want to keep moving forward, I think they got to acknowledge that, and try to push through and see if they can find their guy or their guys, plural, moving forward, because this coaching staff. Mike McCarthy's going to bring what he brings offensively, but he needs to assemble a defensive staff if he's not keeping guys. And again, these Steelers, they're looking for jobs. Like they don't know what it is. And if there's an aired promise out there, it needs to be landed soon, very soon, because a lot of these coaches are going to be moving on if they don't get anything soon. It's the nature of the business. And I think that's something that the Steelers and Mike McCarthy particularly need to prepare for and get moving on very soon.
I think the defensive coordinator is even more important than the offensive coordinator, because I mean, I think we kind of have a general sense of what the personality of a Mike McCarthy offense is, sort of no matter. I mean, he's had a number of different offensive coordinators. You go back, Joe Phil with Edgar Bennett, Moore and Schottenheimer and Dallas. Like there's things that you can carry through all those guys that you can sort of parse out as like, this is what a Mike McCarthy offense is going to do.
Right.
They're going to go under center. They're not going to use a ton of motion. They're going to use good spacing. They're going to attack down the field. Like, West Coast offense concepts. Like the defense, though, like he could decide he's just going to keep the Steelers playbook. He could decide to go a completely different direction. Haven't really. I heard Patrick Graham's name put out there yesterday. I think that's a really good coach. I think that would be a great fit. But until we kind of know, there's a lot that could change about the way this defense looks based on who that coordinator is, because, I mean, I assume that person's going to have a lot of say in the structure of it, the schematics, the personnel, the intent, and the the sort of mindset of that unit could very much change.
I think it could be really interesting to see if it does change, because the Steelers, they're in a time of change. They're trying to figure things out. You got to go to things that you have a good foundation in it, and I think that's what the Steelers are trying to do with how they've assembled this roster, and they're moving forward with it. And with them moving forward, Alan, we're going to get to this in the next segment, but there's some people that still think the Steelers should be tanking. That still think, okay, now it'll be fine. It'll be okay. We'll be okay with having a really, really bad season, because that's just how you fix things. I want to talk about that with Alan, because I've seen that perspective a lot. We'll address that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Stick with us. Be right back. But first, I remind you, this show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part has always been tough. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. Pull up the Game Time app, pick an up-and-coming NBA game, and have tickets locked in within minutes. You'll love seeing the all-in price up front. No surprise fees to check out. The Game Time app lets you see the view from your seat before you select it, giving you full control. Zone Deals is a great feature that helps you save money while finding great seats. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Great last-minute options too. NBA tickets showing up at all solid prices to take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time, as well as NBA tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Get back to being there live. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. On one final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60. FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Alan, wanted to talk to you about the narrative that we've seen out there, especially because we're talking about the Super Bowl teams. The New England Patriots are back in the Super Bowl, and everyone's like, see, all they had to do, it was so simple. They just needed to lose so that they can win. They needed to tank so they could get Drake May, and they could just return right back to championship level right after that. But Alan, you and I were talking about this. It's never that simple. That's not also what happened in New England. One thing, when people point like, oh, see, they got rid of their legendary head coach and it was fine. Things worked out, and it looks like it's working out right now. But they had 4 losing seasons in 5 years leading up to this season, and Bill Belichick was a big part of those.
Well, let me just say this: that 5 years in between distinct championship contenders is extremely good. That is about as good as you can do as an NFL team. And the idea that the Patriots took a good team, a playoff team, and took it apart on purpose is just not correct. They went 4-13 in 2023, trying to win.
Yep.
They tried to win and failed and went 4-13. Mm-hmm. Then I will admit 2024 was just a punt of a season.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, The last team to do that, and in relatively short order to come away with a Super Bowl on the other side of it, should the Patriots happen to win this week, was the Dallas Cowboys in the early 1990s. It is not this foolproof idea. It is extremely, extremely rare to see teams sort of purposefully take a knee on a season, or maybe take a knee is the wrong word, but field a non-competitive roster for a season, and then bounce back the way they did. So, I mean, look, credit to the Patriots, because I think they did a really nice job. I think they identified a really good coach in Mike Vrabel. They were aggressive to go get him when he became available foolishly by the Titans. They picked the right quarterback, which, I mean, look at the history of the first round recently. I mean, it is not good. There are more busts than there are hits in the first round. Just getting that number 2 pick or number 1 pick doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, it really doesn't. And so it's very hard. And you are just as likely to, if you look at the best quarterbacks in the league, picking 10 or 15 or 20, Lamar Jackson, end of the first round. Patrick Mahomes, middle of the first round. Hurts, second round. Dak, fourth round. Brock Purdy, dead last pick. Sam Darnold, scrap heap free agent. You can do it lots of different ways. The idea that you have to or should, look, if you had a team where you tried to win and you were so bad at it that you went 4-13, okay, then maybe that's a good strategy for the next year. The idea of taking a 10-win team and trying to take it apart on purpose to go get a draft pick, to me, that's just insane. That's not based on any sound strategy whatsoever. That's just people playing Madden. And the problem with that is that the players, the good players that the Steelers have, that they won 10 games with, would have to play very poorly to their own standards for you to get there. And then what do you do? I mean, to me, there's not any kind of sound logic or reasoning in terms of how you should be trying to build a football team.
I agree. I think there's a lot of misnomers that get put out there, things that just aren't accurate when people say, "Oh, the Patriots did this and they're fine." They're pushing their way through, and certainly they're back in the Super Bowl. But people say, "Oh, they just had a bad year or two. They were fine." They had 4 losing seasons in 5 years, and I believe 3 of those were with Bill Belichick. So,
and look at the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks, it took them longer, but they're back in the Super Bowl, and they only had 1 losing season from the 14th Super Bowl team to now. And they didn't tank, and they're never bad. They're not. I think they played 2 or 3 games since that Super Bowl where they were eliminated from postseason contention. They fired a coach, sure. They traded away Russell Wilson, yeah. But I think it really just goes to show that there is not one way to do this, and that there are multiple paths to success. And honestly, I think what the Seahawks did looks a lot more sustainable than what the Patriots did. Because when you dip down into that 3-4 win realm, there's no guarantee you're coming back.
Right.
You're flirting with the devil. That's what you're doing down there. You're allowing the cancer that is losing into your organization and your culture and daring it to kill it and hoping you live through it. I'd much rather be the Seattle Seahawks than the New England Patriots over the last 5 years. I don't know about you. I think that's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
I mean, it just, what the Patriots did is impressive. It is also very, very, very difficult to repeat.
What the Patriots did is impressive. It's full stop. That's but I feel you. I think the thing with this is that people think that the quick tank, you're just going to hit the odds that you hit your quarterback are so low, because that's also important to remember that wasn't their first round quarterback they tried in this rebuild. They drafted Mac Jones. So like they've taken the they took their shots. Bill Belichick took the shots, and the year that he was ousted, they got their guy, and I think that's positive. I think for them, but it's not a guaranteed formula that's going to work for the Steelers.
I think the better lesson to learn from the Patriots is that it is more important to quickly recognize your mistakes than to not make them. They drafted Mac Jones in the first round and moved on very quickly. They hired Jared Mayo and moved on very quickly. Like, I think that's the real – it's not lose on purpose to me. That's the wrong lesson. The lesson is take big swings. Mac Jones was a big swing. That was not a guy that – when I watched him at the Senior Bowl here, people walked in thinking he's a top 15 pick. He was not that. He kind of played his way into that, but he was a question mark. And they took him. It didn't work out. Drake May was a player that, I mean, a lot of people thought was really good, but certainly not a sure thing. I mean, go from Mayo to Vrabel. Like, I just think the lesson to learn from the Patriots is not go tank and go lose 26 games over 2 seasons. It's take big swings and then move on quickly when they don't work out.
I kind of like that. Alan, I think that there's still a lot to be said about how the Steelers are handling this era, because it's they made their moves. Mike McCarthy's the head coach, but they got to close the coaching ranks. They got to figure that out. But in doing all that, they still need to remember, that the ultimate goal is for the Steelers to get back to be real Super Bowl contenders again. And I think that's the thing, is that, like you said, if you're tanking, you're potentially throwing that away. And so again, and even if it's not tanking, if it's just, people are like, oh man, they still didn't win a playoff game, but they got 10 wins again. Would that be frustrating? Sure, I get that. Absolutely. But when we're talking about bad years, and we're talking about things, there's plenty of teams that were reputable for decades, and then they hit that rock bottom, and then they didn't get up off the mat. And that's what the Steelers need to avoid becoming, because I think that's something that, I was saying will happen, but they need to be able to sustain and keep winning. I think that's why Mike McCarthy was picked, is I think that he's going to help them avoid that. That's something Art Rooney said he doesn't want to have to do, is deal with, losing seasons. He says, we're retooling, we're reworking. I think that's the thing that could be in the Steelers' advantage here, is if they're able to keep things going and sort of keep that status quo of, hey, we're always in playoff contention.
I think that the formula for a playoff win is to have an elite team and get a little bit of luck, or have a good team and get a lot of luck. I mean, there
you go.
That's what it is.
Indeed,
I
it is.
I don't think anybody was calling the this Super Bowl before the season, were they?
Nope.
Nope. So
I agree. I think it's certainly part of that equation there. I brought this segment up because I felt like some people they think that's the way. It doesn't have to be the way. And again, congrats to teams that do it that way. But there's a lot more teams that they tank, or they have the really high picks, and it still doesn't amount to much. The Steelers, I think, are aware of that and keep track of those types of things. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're both in Mobile, which means we want to cover the Senior Bowl. I want to get Alan's thoughts on some of the players that I'm keeping an eye out for and what's happening there. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
We're also brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. The football season is coming down to its final stretch. Now is the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections, no drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the Super Bowl. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. Pick 2 or more players, choose more or less in their projections, and it makes watching games way more engaging, especially during the playoffs and the big game. Favorite feature of mine, early payouts, which lets you cash out if a player gets off to a hot start. The new social feed makes it fun to follow friends, share lineups, and get inspiration from other players. The early payout feature is a great bonus as well. When your lineup starts strong, you cash out faster, get those winnings. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, wanted to run by. We're here for the Senior Bowl. You'll be back for the press conference in Pittsburgh. I won't be for Mike McCarthy, but then you'll be back here in Alabama for the Senior Bowl. And I wanted to pick your brain on the positions that you're watching the closest while you're out here, because to me, wide receiver is a big one. But there's some wide receivers that I feel, aren't in the consideration for where you want them to be. If they were to trade out, like Mekhi Lemon's not going to be here. None of the top dogs are going to be there. And it's just funny because this is for years. One thing I was like, okay, where does Mike Tomlin go? All right, that's what they're looking at really hard right now. There's none of that's here now. So I want to get your early thoughts on what this first Senior Bowl without Mike Tomlin is going to be like this year. And, what are some of the positions that you're looking at or players that you're looking at really closely?
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy aren't going to be there at least today because they're going to be in Pittsburgh with me. So, I mean, it's going to be you and Andy Waddle, I guess. I just did this at the Shrine Bowl. Let me tell you, I was like the meme of the cat, I'm like,
yeah,
it's a wide receiver, it's a linebacker, it's a safety, it's a tight end, it's a guard. Like I'm just like I don't know. Like it could be anything. What don't they need? Center. That's about the list. That's all I got.
Yeah.
But I also would have said they didn't need an edge rusher last year and they drafted one. So like we'll put a little asterisk there. Like, I mean, that's about where we're at. It was really, really difficult covering that game, covering those practices to be like, where do I need to be focused on? I think wide receiver is probably the position where they're the weakest on the roster. And I think it's a really strong draft class at wide receiver, although, as you mentioned, the first rounders are not here in Mobile. I think there's 5 of them, and none of them are here. But I think what I saw in Frisco was really, for me, eye-opening because, you figure like, all right, top 30 guys probably aren't going to either game, second and third rounders mostly here at the Senior Bowl. If I was looking at like 4th and 5th rounders this week, then I think it's a pretty good wide receiver class. And so I think there's a lot of talent there to be mined, and I think that's certainly what they need.
Certainly, I think it is, and there's other needs as well. Receiver, one guy that everyone's gonna have their eye was Casey Conception, out of Texas A&M, really good player, uses his hands, goes up and gets the football.
Yeah, he ain't coming either.
What'd you say?
He ain't coming either. He pulled out of the Senior Bowl.
Oh, he pulled out, so then he's out. there you have it. Elijah Surratt, the other Indiana guy. That's the other thing. Things are changing every day. There's going to be players that come to the Senior Bowl that are going to change things. So there's a lot of different factors here that Steelers are going to have to keep their eyes on when it comes to this. I think safety is another position where they're going to need to see how guys play. There's a lot of guys that are more box safeties. There's some guys that are in the free safety variety. But to your point, Alan, there's a lot of different guys who can be kind of peeped at by the Steelers and Andy Weidl. And again, no Mike McCarthy, no Mark on here for at least today. So it's not like we're going to be able to see who they stare down or who they try to get closest to. But it's that situation we've talked about before, Alan. The Steelers, they kind of have it. It's a challenge that they can address so many positions, but it can also work in your favor that people can't snipe your picks because you think we're going this direction. Well, we're actually going this direction, or we had 3 other positions where we have guys that we really would like to take at this spot.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the quarterbacks too. Like I mean, Garrett Nussmeier was a guy who was considered a first-round pick for a very long time. Probably is not that now. He's here. I'm really excited to see him. I just saw Cade Klubnik. I'm really interested in trying to keep that fresh for a comparison because I think both of those guys are potential day 2 options at the quarterback position. And there's a couple of guys who can run. Taylon Green from Arkansas and Sawyer Robertson from Baylor are just like crazy athletes. They could be fun to watch. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of delivering the ball on time and accuracy and things like that, but I think there's intrigue, and I don't think there's like elite talent, but I think there's intrigue in the quarterback position in Mobile, and I'm excited to see what Luke Altmaier is kind of a sleeper name too that nobody's really talking about. That like I think he's a guy who's going to end up in the NFL, and so it's not the quarterback class that anybody envisioned, but I think there's talent here too.
There's talent. And there's a lot here. We'll be here for the Senior Bowl all week long, getting a look at all the players involved there and who the Steelers should be looking at. So a lot going on today. We got Senior Bowl practice. We got Mike McCarthy's first press conference. Alan's going to be headed back there to cover that. But then he'll be right back here with me in Mobile after that, weather permitting, because that has been the thing. I thought one thing was interesting about this, Alan. We talked to the executive director of the Senior Bowl, and he said they had to redirect over 125 players on their flights to try to beat this storm. And he said he wouldn't put a number to it. He said it cost a lot of money to get that done, on top of booking new hotel rooms for guys who were getting in early. There was a considerable effort by the people involved at the Senior Bowl to make sure players got in. And I think they said all but like one player out of the 140 that's supposed to be here made it in.
Yeah, Drew's a good guy. First year running the Senior Bowl, and excited to see the show he puts on, because we had him on the Steelers Afternoon Drive earlier this offseason. Probably going to have him on again. So, yeah, it's I love the Senior Bowl. I love Mobile. It's a great city. I talk it up every chance I get. This is your first time here. I'm excited to show you around. Get you some seafood. Get you some jazz music, maybe a little Mardi Gras. We'll do it up. We'll do it up.
It's going to be a fun week here. Keep it here on the Locked On Steelers podcast to have fun with us. Alan, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more to work.
_PGH on social media. SteelersNow.com is where you can find my written work and my podcast, Steelers Morning Rush and Steelers Afternoon Drive, on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders. Thanks, Alan, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media, at Carter Critiques. Read my work for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your podcasting apps and on YouTube. We'll see you again here tomorrow on the Locked On Steelers podcast.